From a shocking major character death to extra deadly Demobats that would have killed Steve, and a big change to the Mind Flayer reveal in the finale, there were some fascinating moments and scenes cut from Stranger Things 4. Yippee-ki-yay, movie lovers, I'm Jan, and in this video I'm revealing the deleted scenes and alternate ending you never got to see in the 4th season of Stranger Things. Spoilers ahead of course, so take care. In the season 4 finale, everything goes horribly wrong when Vecna claims Max as his 4th victim, opening the 4 gates to the Upside Down. Although Max briefly died, 11 managed to bring her back, though she was left in a coma. The Duffer Brothers have revealed now, however, that in the season's original ending, Max died permanently, but they changed their minds about this as they wanted to end on a little more of a question mark. Obviously, I'm glad Max survived her deadly encounter, and given how much season 4 channels The Empire Strikes Back, I think her comatose state is akin to Han Solo ending up frozen in carbonite. In other words, it's something she'll surely recover from in the 5th and final season. The Upside Down's Demobats introduced in season 4 were fearsome predators, and with their hive mind connection to Vecna they could act as the villain's spies. Fan favourite Eddie tragically died from his injuries after being attacked by the creatures, but originally the flying monsters were going to be even more deadly. According to Stranger Things concept artist Michael Marr Jr., the initially approved version of the bats had serrated tail tentacles that were meant to wrap and then cut flesh. If the Demobats we saw in the show had been equipped with this razor-sharp tail, it seems like they could have easily killed Steve when one of them wrapped its tail around his neck and began strangling him after he was taken into the Upside Down. On top of that, another even more gruesome version of the Demobat was considered, whose head and body would split open horizontally. I think this design would have felt a little similar to the Demodogs and Demogorgons whose heads open up, although seeing the whole of the Demobat's body open up would have been pretty horrifying. By the way, the original design for the Demobats was based on the parasitic Mynock bats from Star Wars, which attack the Millennium Falcon in The Empire Strikes Back. Fans have been heartbroken over the death of Eddie, but the season very nearly ended with another big death as well, as the Duffer Brothers have revealed that originally Dimitri, aka Enzo, didn't make it out of the season alive. The Russian prison guard became friends with Hopper when they were imprisoned together after being given up by the treacherous Yuri. Dimitri was crucial in changing Yuri's mind about sabotaging the helicopter, which in turn ensured Hopper, Joyce and Murray could finally escape the Russian prison after they destroyed the Demodogs and Demogorgon. Perhaps killing off a Russian good guy felt too similar to Alexei dying at the end of season 3, so the Duffers changed it. After all, from what we saw in season 4, there wasn't any major narrative need to kill off Dimitri, so the change feels like a sensible one. It's also possible the Duffers still have a little something planned for a Russian storyline in season 5, so they kept him alive, given how he told Yuri that Russia could be under threat from the Upside Down as well. When asked on the Happy Sad Confused podcast whether Eddie was always destined to have a single season arc on the show, the Duffer Brothers explained that even if he had survived his encounter with the Demobats, his character was still doomed and he would have wound up in jail because nobody in Hawkins would have accepted a supernatural explanation for what happened to Chrissy, Fred and Patrick, and he was still being demonized at the end. Sadly, the Duffers said Eddie's plan to finally graduate was never a realistic one, and he was hurtling towards doom through all of season 4. An incredible piece of concept art, which sadly didn't make it into the final cut, was of this moment when Eleven sends Henry through an interdimensional tear from the Rainbow Room. The point of view here is from the hellscape that one falls into, and it's a beautiful shot that would have been fantastic to see. After one was thrown into the hellscape, he arrived in a strange new world where he came across a swarming mass of dark particles that were seemingly alive. With his powers, he shaped these into the giant spider form we know as the Mind Flayer, that he would go on to control and use to manipulate Will in season 2. However, Marr has explained that in early concepts of that scene, in order to create the Mind Flayer, one actually had to extract the particles out of floating boulders. By contrast, the final final show reveals that the particles already existed as a separate entity before Henry ever went into that dimension.
The Upside Down has probably been around for thousands of years, millions. I wouldn't be surprised if it predated the dinosaurs.
And that change might also imply that the particles in this dimension, as well as the Demogorgon creatures which were already living there when Henry arrived, weren't malicious until he came along and transformed them into a malevolent force for his own ends. Concept artist Marr also revealed that the floating rocks in this dimension are an asteroid field operating under an altered state of gravity, and his initial idea was that the Mind Flayer particles were an anti-gravity element that would lift the boulders into the air, making the rocks fall upwards. This sounds like the particles that one discovers are a kind of fundamental force that governs things in this other dimension. Apparently the idea was abandoned in the end, as Marr says that it would have taken too long to explain in the context of the story. Also, the Dimension's original look in this concept art was a lot darker, whereas it had a yellowish-orange hue and lighting in the final version. And Vecna's Mind Lair, where he torments Max and Eleven and stores the bodies of his victims, originally had some strikingly different designs. According to Marr, this one is a large vortex where fragments of the house were dissolving along with spires containing rotted victims. Everything would have been moving, slowly swirling in a circular motion. And in this version of the villain's lair, Vecna dragged his victims across a blood-soaked space towards a huge stone structure in the background. Marr has said that this idea, and the look of the Mind Lair in general, is influenced by the paintings of the dystopian surrealist Polish artist Beksinski. And this similar shot of a vast landscape with Vecna dragging his victim to a towering slab of rock on top of an enormous mound was inspired by the sci-fi psychological thriller The Cell, which features scenes literally entering a killer's twisted mind and dreamscape. In this other horrifying version, there's a slimy web of interconnected vines suspending 3 of Vecna's victims over some kind of altar, and it looks like he was dragging his 4th victim over to the spot. There's a real spider's web feel about this design, which is fitting of course given Henry's love of Black Widow spiders as a child. And in these earlier versions, Max was suspended in the air via Vecna's vines rather than against a column as happened in the show. This is more akin to how Vecna himself levitates via a web of vines whenever he's projecting his consciousness outside his physical body. By the way, Marr also revealed that the swirling haze in Vecna's lair is meant to reference the storm in Billy's mind that Eleven saw when she reached into his memories in season 3. And an early concept of Vecna's attic had him lifted into the air by vines coming mostly from the floor. This later morphed into the final idea where he was suspended instead from the sides and the ceiling, deliberately creating the effect of a spider's web and how a spider waits in its web to trap its victims. It's a very creepy moment when Fred has a hallucination of grieving mourners at a funeral, and a little girl points at him and her finger extends into a long deformed claw similar to one of Vecna's giant fingers. But this original concept art suggests the moment could have been even more gruesome, with tentacles also emerging from the girl's arm and across her hand, and blood streaming from her eyes. And if you'd like to discover the super creepy, horrifying designs for Vecna that we almost got, including one where he had 4 legs and a mantis-like body, tap here to watch that video, or there's a link in the video description. So movie lovers, what do you think about these original ideas for season 4? Let me know in the comments below. If you liked this video, do leave a thumbs up, I really appreciate it.
Bitchin', right?
And you can tap left to discover every incredible Easter egg you missed in the final part of season 4. Thanks for enjoying Stranger Things with me, and hope you have a marvellous movie loving week. Yippee-ki-yay, movie lovers!